The morning sun cast long shadows across Windsor Castle as Prince William adjusted his formal uniform one final time. His hands trembled slightly, not from nervousness, but from the weight of what lay ahead. Today would mark the end of an era that had defined not just his life, but the very fabric of the British monarchy. Kate stood beside him in the private drawing room, her elegant black dress perfectly tailored, yet somehow unable to mask the profound sadness in her eyes. She had spent the early hours of the morning with their children, explaining in gentle terms what the day would bring. George, Charlotte, and Louis had listened with the solemn understanding that comes to royal children earlier than most. The couple had been preparing for this moment for months, yet nothing could have truly readied them for the emotional reality. Palace staff moved quietly through the corridors, their usual chatter replaced by respectful whispers. Even the most seasoned courtiers, who had witnessed countless royal ceremonies, seemed affected by the gravity of what was unfolding. William walked to the window overlooking the gardens where he had played as a child. These same grounds had witnessed his wedding day, the christenings of his children, and countless family gatherings. Now they would host something entirely different. The media had gathered beyond the gates, their cameras ready to capture every moment of what many were calling the most significant royal event in decades. Kate joined him at the window, placing her hand gently on his arm. They had discussed this moment countless times in private, weighing every decision, every word that would be spoken. The burden of their roles had never felt heavier, yet their resolve had never been stronger. This was about duty, about family, about doing what was right despite the personal cost. The Archbishop of Canterbury had arrived earlier that morning, along with other senior clergy, who would play crucial roles in the ceremony. Prime Minister and other government officials were already being briefed on the protocols. International dignitaries had flown in from across the Commonwealth, understanding that they were witnessing history in the making. As the clock struck 10, a gentle knock came at the door. It was time to begin the formal preparations. William and Kate exchanged a look that spoke volumes about their shared journey and the path they were now choosing to walk together. Whatever came next, they would face it as they always had, united, dignified, and committed to serving something greater than themselves. The weight of centuries of tradition seemed to press down upon them as they prepared to step into their roles for what many believed would be their final official act in their current capacity. The British people, and indeed the world, waited to witness how the future king and queen would handle this momentous transition. The Grand Hall of Windsor Castle had been transformed for the occasion. Hundreds of chairs arranged in perfect rows faced a raised platform where the most important ceremony in recent royal history would unfold. Representatives from every corner of the Commonwealth had taken their seats, their faces reflecting the solemnity of the moment. William and Kate made their entrance together, walking slowly down the aisle that had been carpeted in deep royal blue. The silence in the room was profound, broken only by the soft sound of their footsteps and the distant clicking of cameras from the designated media area. Kate's composure was remarkable, though those who knew her well could see the slight tension in her shoulders, the way she held her head just a fraction higher than usual. The couple had spent the previous evening in quiet reflection with their closest family members. King Charles had shared private words with his son, a conversation that would remain between them forever. The Queen Consort had embraced Kate warmly, understanding perhaps better than anyone the unique pressures of royal duty and public expectation. As they reached the platform, William turned to face the assembled crowd. His voice, when he began to speak, was clear and steady despite the emotional weight of his words. He spoke of service, of dedication to the crown and the British people. His speech had been carefully crafted over weeks of preparation, yet in this moment, it felt entirely natural and from the heart. Kate watched her husband with evident pride as he addressed the gathering. She had been his closest advisor throughout the difficult decision-making process that had led to this day. Their private conversations had been filled with concerns about their children, about the future of the monarchy, about their own roles in the changing landscape of modern Britain. The Archbishop stepped forward to begin the formal proceedings. Ancient words filled the hall, words that had been spoken in similar circumstances throughout British history. Yet there was something unique about this moment, something that set it apart from every ceremony that had come before. Perhaps it was the genuine emotion visible on both William and Kate's faces, or the way they seemed to draw strength from each other. Government officials looked on from their designated seats, understanding that they were witnessing a pivotal moment in British constitutional history. The implications of this ceremony would be felt far beyond the walls of Windsor Castle, affecting policies, procedures, and protocols that had been in place for generations. As the formal words continued, Kate stepped forward to add her own statement. Her voice was softer than William's, but equally determined. She spoke of her gratitude for the opportunities she had been given, her commitment to the causes she had championed, and her hopes for the future of the institution they both loved, deeply despite the difficult circumstances that had brought them to this point. The most powerful moment came when their 3 children were brought forward to join their parents on the platform. George, now understanding his position as future heir, stood tall beside his father with a maturity that surprised even those closest to the family. Charlotte held her mother's hand tightly, her young face serious as she sensed the importance of the occasion. Little Louis, though trying his best to remain still, occasionally looked around the grand hall with wide, curious eyes. William knelt down to speak quietly to each of his children, words that would remain private but whose meaning was clear from the tender way he touched each of their faces. This ceremony was not just about him and Kate. It was about securing the future for the next generation and ensuring that the monarchy would continue to serve the British people effectively. The international press had been speculating for weeks about the family's decision. Some had questioned whether such a drastic step was necessary, while others praised the couple for their courage in facing an unprecedented situation. Inside the castle, however, such debates seemed irrelevant. What mattered was the dignity with which William and Kate were handling circumstances that had been forced upon them by events beyond their control. Kate's parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, sat in the front row alongside other close family members. Their journey from middle-class entrepreneurs to parents of a future queen had been extraordinary, and now they watched their daughter navigate the most challenging moment of her royal life with grace and determination. Michael's eyes were noticeably moist, while Carol maintained the composed demeanor that had served her well throughout her daughter's royal journey. The ceremony reached its crescendo as William and Kate simultaneously signed the documents that would formalize their decision. The sound of their pens scratching across the parchment seemed amplified in the hushed hall. Each signature represented not just a legal formality, but a profound personal sacrifice made in service of principles larger than themselves. Prince Harry, who had flown in specially for the occasion, watched from his seat with visible emotion. Despite the well-documented tensions within the royal family, this moment transcended personal disagreements. The bond between the brothers was evident as Harry nodded slightly when William caught his eye, a gesture of support that spoke to their shared understanding of duty and sacrifice. The Archbishop pronounced the formal conclusion of the primary ceremony, but everyone in the hall understood that the real significance lay not in the legal procedures, but in the courage and dignity that William and Kate had displayed throughout. As they turned to face their children once more, the family's unity in this difficult moment provided a powerful image that would be remembered long after the formal aspects of the ceremony were forgotten. Commonwealth representatives began to file past the family, offering words of support and admiration for the difficult decision they had made. Each handshake, each quiet word of encouragement, reinforced the global respect that William and Kate had earned through years of dedicated service. Following the formal ceremony, a more intimate reception was held in the castle's state dining room. The atmosphere had shifted from solemn formality to something approaching celebration, though the underlying emotions remained complex. William moved through the room, speaking personally with many of the guests who had traveled from around the world to witness this historic moment. Kate found herself in conversation with several Commonwealth leaders who expressed their continued support for the royal family despite the changing circumstances. Her ability to connect with people from vastly different backgrounds had always been one of her greatest strengths, and even in this difficult situation, she demonstrated the diplomatic skills that had made her such an effective representative of the crown. The children had been taken to a quieter area of the castle where they could relax away from the formal atmosphere. Palace staff, many of whom had watched George, Charlotte, and Louis grow up, provided comfort and distraction during what must have been a confusing day for the young royals. Their resilience throughout the proceedings had impressed everyone present. King Charles moved through the reception with his characteristic blend of warmth and formality, but those close to him could see the strain of the day in his eyes. This decision had not been made lightly by any member of the family, and the personal cost was evident despite their public composure. The Queen Consort remained close by his side, providing the steady support that had become her hallmark since joining the family. Media representatives, carefully selected for their respectful coverage of royal events, were allowed brief interviews with some of the international guests. The consensus was unanimous. William and Kate had handled an extraordinarily difficult situation with remarkable grace and dignity. Their commitment to serving the greater good, even at personal cost, had only enhanced their reputation on the world stage. The afternoon brought a private moment that few outsiders would witness. William and Kate walked alone through the castle grounds, retracing paths they had walked countless times during happier occasions. The weight of their decision was evident in their slow pace and frequent pauses, but so too was their mutual support and shared conviction that they had chosen the right course. Palace staff began the delicate process of transitioning various responsibilities and protocols. Decades of established procedures would need to be modified, and the implications would ripple through every aspect of royal operations. Yet the professionalism and dedication of the royal household staff ensured that these changes would be handled with the same discretion and efficiency that had always characterized their service. As evening approached, the reality of what had transpired began to settle over everyone involved. This had been more than a ceremony. It had been a demonstration of how duty and personal sacrifice could be balanced with dignity and grace. The global response was already beginning to filter in, with messages of support and admiration arriving from leaders and citizens around the world. The couple spent their final formal evening in their official capacity, hosting a small dinner for their closest supporters and advisors. The conversation was warm and often touched on memories of better times, but it was also forward-looking, focused on how the lessons learned during their years of service could continue to benefit others even as their roles evolved. The following morning brought a different kind of challenge as William and Kate faced their first day in their new reality. The castle, which had been their home and workplace for so many years, now felt different. Staff moved about their duties with the same professionalism as always, but there was an underlying sense that an era had ended and something entirely new was beginning. Their breakfast was a quiet family affair, with the children asking questions that were both innocent and profound. George wanted to know if they would still live in the same house, while Charlotte was concerned about her favorite pony. Louis, too young to fully grasp the implications, was mainly interested in whether his toys would come with them wherever they were going next. These simple questions highlighted the human side of a story that had captured global attention. Kate spent much of the morning organizing personal belongings and preparing for the practical aspects of their transition. Years of official papers, correspondence, and personal mementos needed to be sorted and packed. Each item seemed to carry memories of the extraordinary journey that had brought them from university sweethearts to the center of one of the world's most watched institutions. William met with senior palace officials to finalize the transfer of his various patronages and official duties. Organizations that had benefited from his support and involvement would need to adjust to new arrangements. His military appointments, charity work, and ceremonial roles all required careful handling to ensure continuity of service to the British people and the causes he had championed. The morning also brought the first wave of public reaction as newspapers around the world published their coverage of the previous day's events. The response was overwhelmingly supportive, with editorial writers praising the couple's courage and dignity. Citizens gathered outside royal residences not in protest, but to show their continued respect and affection for William and Kate despite the changed circumstances. International reaction was equally positive, with world leaders issuing statements of support and admiration. The couple's decision was seen not as a retreat from duty, but as the ultimate expression of their commitment to serving the greater good. Their willingness to make such a profound, personal sacrifice for the sake of institutional stability had elevated their global standing even as it ended their formal royal roles. By midday, William and Kate had completed most of their official handovers and were preparing for what would be their final formal appearance as working members of the royal family. The weight of this realization was evident in their subdued manner, though both maintained the composed dignity that had characterized their entire approach to this difficult period. Their final official engagement was a brief walkabout among the staff who had served them faithfully throughout their years in their royal roles. These dedicated individuals, from senior advisors to housekeeping staff, had become like extended family. The emotional farewells were perhaps the most difficult part of the entire transition, as these relationships had provided stability and support through both triumph and crisis. The afternoon brought a moment of private reflection as William and Kate sat together in the garden where they had often retreated during stressful times. The peaceful setting provided a stark contrast to the momentous changes swirling around them, offering a brief respite from the weight of history and the uncertainty of the future. As the sun began to set on their final day in their official capacity, William and Kate gathered their children for one last walk through the castle grounds they had called home. The golden light filtered through the ancient trees, casting everything in a warm glow that seemed to soften the sharp edges of the day's emotions. George walked beside his father, asking thoughtful questions about what came next, while Charlotte and Louis ran ahead, their youthful energy a reminder that life would continue beyond this moment of profound change. The family paused at various spots that held special meaning: the garden where they had hosted countless charity events, the courtyard where the children had learned to ride their bicycles, the terrace where they had shared quiet family dinners away from the public eye. Each location told a story of their years of service and the personal moments that had sustained them through the demands of royal duty. Kate reflected on the journey that had brought her from a relatively ordinary background to the center of one of the world's most scrutinized institutions. Her transformation from university student to duchess to this moment of transition had been extraordinary, marked by both tremendous privilege and equally tremendous responsibility. She had learned to navigate the complex balance between personal authenticity and public duty, a skill that would serve her well in whatever lay ahead. William's thoughts turned to his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, and the example she had set throughout her long reign. Her unwavering commitment to duty and service had provided a template for his own approach to royal responsibility. Even in this moment of stepping back, he felt connected to that legacy of service, knowing that their decision honored the same principles that had guided the monarchy for generations. The children's laughter echoed across the grounds as they played one final game of hide-and-seek among the castle's ancient walls. Their joy and resilience had been a source of strength throughout this difficult period, reminding their parents that the most important duties were often the simplest ones: protecting their family and ensuring their children could grow up with stability and love. As darkness fell, the family returned to the castle for a private dinner with King Charles and the Queen Consort. The meal was intimate and warm, filled with shared memories and quiet conversation about the future. Despite the sadness of the circumstances, there was also a sense of relief that the difficult decision had been made and implemented with dignity and grace. The final moments of their official royal life were spent in quiet reflection. William and Kate sat together in their private sitting room, surrounded by packed boxes and the remnants of their years in royal service. They spoke softly about their hopes for their children, their gratitude for the opportunities they had been given, and their continued commitment to serving others, even if in a different capacity. When morning came, they would begin a new chapter as private citizens, but their legacy of dedicated service, dignity in crisis, and unwavering commitment to family would endure. The farewell they had delivered had indeed been moving and marked by dignity and emotion, but it was also a beginning, proof that true service to others transcends titles and official roles. Their story would be remembered not just for how it ended, but for the grace, courage, and love that had defined every chapter along the way. As they prepared to step into an uncertain but hopeful future, William and Kate had demonstrated that the greatest acts of service sometimes require the greatest personal sacrifice.